Hey, welcome to another episode of Digging Deeper. I am Jeremy. Who are you?
I am Bobby.
You're Bobby. This is episode 167. It actually is.
Brilliant.
Yes. And coming in off a really fun weekend. I thought fun.
Yeah.
We did that taco thing this week, but what I loved is all the people hanging. I know the tacos were good, but it was really fun to watch. We had a lot of people just hanging out at the church.
Both services, hundreds of people in between, after, just chilling out, getting some tacos, some good tacos, supporting
Really
the
good
youth
ones.
to go to youth camp in a few weeks. And so
good.
excited about what God is doing in our youth ministry and in youth camp. You mentioned yesterday you're like over 100. The actual number is like 170.
Yeah, it's crazy numbers.
So it is, it's almost 200.
And it's like a record, right? I think it's our record.
100% a record.
Yes.
Most we've ever taken to camp. It's going to require 3 buses, I think. But it's middle school, high school. So the way it all breaks down. But yeah, it's super excited for what they're doing. And it was really cool on Sunday being able to sit in the room, hang out with people, tacos, people chilling outside, inside, everywhere across our campus here. And
Not only that, we talked about one of our Christmas offering initiatives.
Yes.
And actually had the group. So Teen Challenge. I love Teen Challenge. My family's been we've just loved Teen Challenge since I was a kid. So when the church announced that we were working, and those who don't know what Teen Challenge is, it is a drug and alcohol addiction rehabilitation recovery program. And we have a local men's Teen Challenge here in San Diego that we've been supporting. And they all came on Taco Sunday, which was so cool. They came on a week that we were celebrating what God's done through the people of Rise, but specifically through Teen Challenge. And I thought it was cool to have all the guys there.
Yeah, it was cool. Director Mike Conway was here as well.
Yes.
For the San Diego Teen Challenge, as well as one of our guys here that just a volunteer at the church, Tommy, who's on staff at Teen Challenge. He's here every week. But yeah, it was really cool to see the guys, have them in the room. I was talking to Mike, the director of Teen Challenge, in between services.
Mm-hmm.
And he just thought, how appropriate the day was, even to have the Teen Challenge guys here. We showed part 3 of the baptism videos, which I believe is the last edition of the baptism videos.
Yes.
For this round.
For now, I was going to say, because we said it, you want to see these keep going, just get baptized, there'll be more, and there will be.
And so, but some of the stories in those baptism videos would have resonated really well with some of the Teen Challenge guys. And Mike was telling me that even some of the Teen Challenge guys committed their life to the Lord yesterday. And so just what a beautiful moment to have them here in the building to celebrate more of the baptisms that happen. I think in church, we do this often. We build to like these cliff top moments of like how awesome it's going to be, and then we never hear about it again after the event, quote unquote, is over. And so I love that we've been able to celebrate baptisms for this entire month and celebrate, because it's not just the moment or the number of guys and girls that got baptized. It's the stories of people's lives that have been significantly changed. Yes. And so I love hearing that. I never want to get tired of hearing those stories. Yeah. And so, it was really cool. Really cool day.
It was a great day. It was great to end part 3 of our Patriarch series. Talking about Abram, because he hasn't changed his name yet. Or God hasn't changed his name.
God hasn't changed his name yet.
And talking about, you actually covered a lot of ground. That was one of the things because you were moving.
I realized the pace I went week 1 and week 2 was very slow.
Gotcha.
I did half of a chapter week 1. I'm trying to get through the entire patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, throughout the summer. And at my current pace, I was like slated to be done in 2029. And so I was like, let's move a little faster through some of this. Yeah. But I don't regret the early days of the 2 first messages, because I think laying the groundwork is what we did then. And we'll move at a more accelerated pace throughout the story at this point. So we covered chapters 14 through 16. Jumped in right after Lot and Abram parted ways.
Yes. And you talked about a couple different things. I kind of want to, it was towards the end, but it stuck with me. So I don't know if you want me to start at the beginning, but
start wherever you feel good.
Because it stuck with me. You talked a lot. Well, you talked about the fact that he was called a Hebrew.
Yes.
And I want you to talk more about that. That really, so that was actually towards the front end of the message.
I did that. I was struggled. I was like, how do I fit this in? Because I started writing my notes early. And when I got to that part, it felt like a pivot from the story or a tangent that I didn't know how to get back to. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to say this first and then jump into the story. Yep. And so, I mean, it was the first time in the text. He's called a Hebrew. Hebrew is the language of which obviously the Israelites would speak, but it was their cultural identifier. And it was a couple of different things that was interesting to me. Like, they're called Israelites, but they're called Hebrews. And the connection to that word, I'm not an expert in language, but I have friends who are experts in language. And so I leaned on some friends for some good research for that. And so I don't want to butcher any of the words, but the Hebrew word that means Hebrew comes from a different root word that if you look at them next to each other, he was telling me, he's like, they're actually, you wouldn't think they're the same root word, but they are. Okay. And then that root word just means to cross over. And that's what we talked about. Abram was identified by his obedience to God to cross over into a new cultural space, into a new cultural context. And so I found that very interesting.
Very.
I think it's cool that it's the first time we read it. I think the reality is that we would all, I mean, how many times have you read that and not thought twice about it?
Well, I don't think we think twice. What stood out to me is I can say that in all my years of reading the word, all my years in ministry, all of that, I never once went, oh, wait, they weren't Hebrews before that. Yeah. He was the Hebrew. Yeah. And where did that come from? We didn't for that just to be said. So I don't think any of us think about that often.
Yeah. I mean, obviously really scholastic and
they do.
And deep Bible thinkers, educationally minded people probably think like that very often.
Yeah.
But the average person reads the Bible and we don't really think too much about what that means and the implication of that.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it wasn't a title that he had when he was in he didn't have the title in Haran. He didn't have the title even in Egypt from what we know when he ventured out there. This is the first time we see it. And it's really cool because I don't know, I think if I'm a follower of Jesus, I would love for someone to define my life by my obedience to Christ.
Right.
Like I feel like, man, that is when someone the ideas of like like being like judged at first sight, like first thoughts of someone or first impression. That's the word that I'm thinking of. First impressions are one thing, and people have lots of first impressions, and they're often wrong. But after you get to know someone, usually you're like, okay, I know what makes them tick now. I know the details about their life. And so to be defined by something, even after, after he did the action, shows that there was a consistency in his life.
Yes. And it didn't just define him, it defined it generation after generation. His obedience.
All the generations to
all
come.
of them were impacted by that.
Yeah.
Literally changed how they were, their name.
Yeah.
What their generations, generation after generation. So then you talked about something else and it was good. I can say I've never thought, for me personally, I've never thought, oh, I am this type of this. So you talked about, speaking of being defined by, you talked about Christians often define themselves by the type of Christian. And you weren't saying, oh, I'm a Lutheran. Oh, no, you were saying the type of Christian, like, oh, I'm an American Christian.
Yeah.
Or
I'm this kind of political party
Christian.
Christian.
I'm a Republican Christian. I'm a Democrat Christian.
Yeah.
You shared those things. Talk a little bit more about that, because that really did.
Well, when I said it so quickly and I didn't sit on it because I do realize that plenty of people could be offended by the statement. So I was like, to revisit it here on the podcast.
This is great.
No, it what we've gotten into in the world is everything defines everything. Yeah. And so and someone talked to me afterwards and they were like, hey, I didn't like that because actually this specific thing, I didn't like that because I think the second word defines the first word. And I'm like, well, we're talking semantics now. Like the order is less important than the heart of what I'm saying. The heart of what I'm saying is if something defines the type of Christian I am, other than the fact that I am a Christian, a follower of Christ, then that something has control or superiority over the reality that I am a Christian. And I think that, I mean, the greatest place to see it in, honestly, is politics.
Oh, for sure.
And so I'll just sit in that for a minute. We're on a podcast. And
yeah, because you actually compared both sides.
Yeah.
And I thought, I bet there's people in the room on both sides. That's not a Christian.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. There are people who are like, what do you mean Republican Christian? That's not a Christian.
And someone was like, you can't say Democrat Christian.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we had a comment online who actually was like, yeah, how can those, again, I'm just reading the comment online, but it was like, how can those Trump supporters say they're Christian?
Yeah.
Like just a list of things that people have from a political spectrum. And you know, I remember this was probably 10 years ago now. I was at a church and it was when it was during an election cycle. And I believe it was the first time Hillary and Trump were up. So that's how long ago it was. Yeah. They were up against each other. And I did one of those, like, who do you side with politics quizzes. And like my highest percentage agreement was like 55% or something. It was dumb. And the space between the Democrat candidate, Hillary, and the Republican candidate wasn't that vast. It was like 15% difference. And I was talking to someone and I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, I guess if you are like just truly from a biblical lens of things, you're probably not going to have 100% agreement with either of the parties because they have things they align with, obviously, and there's priorities in it. But so in the conversation, I was talking with this girl, and I got to that point, and she goes, oh, no, she was a supporter of Hillary. She's like, no, I did my test. I'm at like 98%. And I was like, I'm sorry, you're at what? You're at 98%? How do you agree with 98% of what she's standing for? Like, I can think of at least 3 things that are not biblical. Same for both parties, by the way.
100%, yes.
And what it hit me is, okay. So in further conversations, I realized the thing that shaded her faith was her politics.
Yes.
As opposed to her faith being the thing that shades her political opinions. So I do believe that Christians should have political opinions. I believe that Christians should be active in the political sphere. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's silly to act like we don't exist in a world where politics are at play. But I think that the important thing for us is, what are we submitting to first? Mm-hmm. Are we submitting to our faith or our political party? Are we submitting to, any of the things, our cultural markers, the fact that we're a Californian first or the fact that we're a Christian first?
Right.
What are we submitting to first? Yeah. And if we have the order right, I believe we're going to be in a good space. Mm-hmm. If we're a Christian before we're aligned with a political party, then if our political party disagrees with something in our Christian faith, then we will not change our Christian faith to align with our political party. But if we reverse it, all of a sudden we will adjust our Christian faith standard to align with our political party because they're so intertwined and connected. Yeah. So,
outside of politics, where else do you see that outside of politics?
They don't use the title as much. I use this. I wanted to sit in it more. I didn't. Let's talk about business owners.
Okay, there you go.
So that one to me was like, we don't say I'm a business owner Christian,
right?
Because it doesn't roll off the tongue so well.
Right.
But the heartbeat of what I'm communicating, I think, is there. I think there's times that as a business owner, business owners can get put in precarious situations where they have to decide if they're going to yield their ethics, yield their biblical morality to do something in the business world. And it's easy for a business guy to begin to compare their business, how big, how small, doesn't matter, to other businesses that are like it. And if the other businesses are doing things that are a little shady, a little dishonest, not in line with scripture, it's easy for the business owner to get tempted. Well, I got to run my business well. So I'm just going to do this and compartmentalize my Christianity. That was the word
I was sitting here thinking. We use the term adjective. It's this idea of I'm compartmentalizing what I do.
Yeah.
Well, what I do over here is not the same as who I am over here.
Yeah. And so the question there is like, okay, so as a business owner, do you run your business at the standard of who Christ has called you to be, or do you separate it and do what the rest of the industry is doing, because they've deemed it right, even though internally you know it's wrong. I think stuff like that erodes your soul. I think it eats away at you, and eventually I think it'll destroy your own walk and your own love for what you're doing. You'll disconnect. Every good thing comes from God. So if you're a business owner and God's helped you with that, blessed you with that, and you're a business owner, you know what I'm talking about here. And so for those of you who don't know, Jeremy's not just an executive pastor, he's also a business owner. Yeah, it's easy to lose ourselves in that. I was an old pastor of mine would always tell this story. And he would tell the story. He was going to a water park with a family member. He had all his kids. The family member had all his kids. His kids were older, like young teenagers. Okay. And when they walk in, it was $20 for an adult, $15 for kids under 12. And the guy paid before him, and then,
I know
then
where
my
this
old
is
pastor
going.
paid for his kids.
Yep.
But he paid the adult rate because they're all adults. And when they got in, he would always tell the story that his friend looked at him and go, "Man, you're an idiot. You missed out on that. You could have saved $15, dude. Why didn't you just say they were kids?" And I don't know if this is how it went down, but I love when he told the story. He'd always look at him and go, "Oh, so that's what your integrity's worth."
Yep.
Yeah. $15.
Yes.
$15 is what your integrity. No, I'll keep my integrity for $15. And $15 is whatever. But that still can ring true, especially when we're talking about business owners who are dealing with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do we still hold our integrity? Mm-hmm. What's it worth? And I would say being a follower of Jesus comes first. And that when we make the right decisions in business, we can trust that God will bless us and take care of us.
That's really good.
And give us what we need to have the life that he wants us to have.
And I think it comes down to it's who am I? And who am I? I'm this. Yeah. I am not the adjectives or the other compartments. I am this no matter where I go. So the other things might season me. You said shade. They might kind of shade. Like my political stance, my view of how society should be is going to be seasoned. But I am a follower of Jesus. That's my identity. Yes. And what we tend to want to do is put all these other things around it and link those as though because I'm this type of follower. Yeah. No, I'm just a follower. And I saw this a lot. I was in law enforcement as well. And one of the big things that happens, whatever your profession or what your identity becomes that. Like I hear a lot, I'm a cop. No, actually you're a man. Like you're just a friend, you're a guy, you're a husband, you're all these things, right? You are made up of a lot of things, but who are you? Because that other thing can be stripped away, but who are you? Yeah. And I think you're right. When I was listening yesterday, I'm like, man, what kind of follower am I? I just want to be a follower. Yeah. I don't let that be the thing that informs all the rest. Not I live in California and therefore that informs how I follow Jesus. No, I follow Jesus whether I'm in California, Arkansas, or anywhere else.
I follow Jesus. That informs how I live in California. Yes. I follow Jesus. That informs how I live as an American. I follow Jesus. That informs how I run my business, parent my children,
work as a cop.
Yeah. All of those things. Everything. Yes. Yeah. And so our identity being rooted in Christ alone, I think is so important. I almost went on this tangent yesterday because I'm pastor. The title pastor. I'd said that. I was like, because I asked the question in the service. I think both services. I'm like, we ask people, so what do you do for a living? Yes. When you don't know what to say.
Which is a weird question. Right. When you said, I'm like, it's so true. That's our go-to, like, hey, so what do you do? Yeah. It puts people in on a side note, that can put a person in a really like, is what I do enough? Is like, it can really put you in a weird spot.
On a plane, I mean, and if someone ever asks me the question, what do you do? It's like, I don't know if I want to answer this right now. Because it can go 1,000 different directions and I'm trapped. I'm there. I'm in that place next to that person. And so it's either going to go really great and easy conversation.
Or they're throwing on their headphones and they're talking.
No, that would actually be fine too. Let me throw on my headphones. Let me do a little study, watch a little movie, do something like that. But yeah, the question, and I think we reduce people down to their employment really fast. All the time. And I think there's more to us than that. And so, I as a pastor, it's funny how people, I got guys on the soccer fields now. I've been here for 11 months and I got guys on the soccer field who call me Pastor Bob. There's this one guy, he calls me Pastor Bob.
There's gonna be two now.
There's gonna be two now. You know what? Both of you are bald, so there's that. But he found out I was a pastor of a church. Actually, his daughter, older daughter, got baptized the same weekend we were doing baptisms. Cool. But he goes to another church. But it's interesting. That is the quickest thing. And so then what do people think? Well, because I'm a pastor, if someone ever cusses around me, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. It's like, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. But like, it's like all of a sudden someone treats me how they feel like they should based off my profession. Mm-hmm. And then they expect perfection from me because of my profession. And like, and it's not a profession, it's a calling, and it's an opportunity I have, but everything we do gets clouded by it. So I am a Christ follower first. And you know what? The pastors are synonymous in some people's minds with perfection. It's a faulty perception, by the way, because there is no perfect pastor, just like there's no perfect Christian, just like there's no perfect person other than Christ. And then also, I was going to say this earlier while we were talking. Paul says this, I think it's in Galatians, I'm forgetting now, but he says, in Christ, there is no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female. We're all one in Christ. And that's that identity marker. I should have added that to the notes yesterday. I didn't have enough time. But that's that identity marker. It is like, hey, listen, before we are anything else, Paul said there is no longer any of this stuff. None of this stuff even, you are a Christian and we are part of one body and we are together. And so I think we divide our churches up now. Like, oh, this is the Democrat church. This is the Republican church. And this is the, this church and that. And we have all that little identifiers. And I just want to be a church that loves Jesus, that loves people well, that disciples, that builds community, that encourages people, that leads people to repentance through the power of the Holy Spirit, that helps people walk out the life that God's called them to. Some churches say there's no perfect people allowed. There's no perfect people in the world to be, so we're all on a journey of following Jesus, and our identifier, if you're a follower of Jesus for 2 seconds or for 100 years now, it is Christ.
That's it.
Christ is our identifier. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're following Jesus, you spent a lot of time talking about, or really emphasized talking about that, the concept of a plan B. So if you're following Jesus, I would love to know where that came from for you. Like, because you said like, I didn't go off on that tangent. But you didn't go off on a tangent, but you camped out for a while on plan B. So talk about that a little bit.
I've always been anti-contingency plans.
Okay.
Always. I'm just the guy who's like, and again, I don't know, maybe it's just my weird way of thinking, or maybe it's a gift God's given me. I don't know. But I just feel like if God said to do something, then don't create a pathway out. Don't create a way to get out of it. Don't plan for something else. And I think there's wisdom, like having money in your savings account is not a plan B. That's just wisdom to live your life by. But like I made the joke of like the man who keeps the number, who's engaged, but he's got all the numbers of his exes in his phone.
I think you said 70.
Did I say
you said 70 phone numbers from his exes. I was like, I don't know who that dude is, but he was popular.
He's got game,
he's got
I guess.
Game.
But yeah, it's like if you do that, we understand that's silly. Why would you do that? It makes no sense. But if you're trying to create like I'm committed to this. If you're committed in marriage, like don't have a plan B, a way out. Don't have a contingency plan if it all falls apart. If you have a contingency plan, if it all falls apart, when it falls apart or when it starts to feel like it's crumbling, you'll assume it's falling apart and you'll run.
Yeah.
But if you have no contingency plan, there's no way out. Then you stay. There's a story. It was written in The Art of War. It was an old book that leaders used to read back in the day. It probably would be frowned upon now. Let's be honest. But this mentality probably is like culturally insensitive, or this story is probably culturally insensitive. But nonetheless, it was a story of what happened. And I can't remember all the names of the guys, but basically the mentality, the war strategy is that if you were a conquering people and that were going to a new land to conquer the land. So again, I realize culturally insensitive. It's not a mentality we live in today, but the leadership mentality is what I want to speak to here. Is so when you would come to the land, it was Cortez. Cortez came to the Mayans. That's the story I'm remembering. But if you come to a land and you get there, the story is that when Cortez landed with all of his men, he says this. His first lieutenant in charge, whatever it is, he walks up to him. He says, "All right, what do you want us to do first?" And the story is Cortez looked at him and says, "Burn the boats."
Yep, burn the boats.
Burn them. And what do you mean burn them? And the mentality is it's going to get hard here. It's going to be difficult here. And if we have a way out, we will give up. But if we have no way out, we will dig in our heels. So we will either be victorious here or we will die here, but we will not retreat.
Right.
And as a guy who grew up at the beginning of the millennial generation, the end of the Gen Xers, that story just resonates with me, man. Just let's not give up. Let's be tenacious. Let's have some zeal about our life. Let's be the people who push into the things of God. Don't have a plan B. Don't live with a contingency plan. You're not committed if you have a way out. Well, I don't know. That's where my head goes.
And I mean, they were, if you want to use Cortez, they were probably self-reliant. Like, we have to be able to do this. The thing about having a contingency plan as a follower of Jesus is it gives you a way out when you actually should be pushing into faith. So where because it's going to get hard.
Yeah.
Following Jesus, doing what he said, we say in our family, listen to Jesus, do what he says. It's simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. Simple can be very hard.
Simple. I mean, the simplest one that we could look at right now is just, let's talk about generosity.
Yes.
It's simple to give.
Yes, but it's not always easy.
But it's not always easy.
No.
And what do you do when you come up and you have to decide, like, what you typically, like, if an unexpected bill shows up, typically the first thing we would sacrifice is our generosity.
Yeah.
Not some other extra. It's the first thing on the chopping block, not the last thing on the chopping block. Well,
and what do we say? And this is an area of my life that I personally have battled. I was the person like, oh, I'll give more when I make more. Then I made more. I'm like, it's harder to give more when you make more.
Yeah,
it actually gets harder. People don't realize that.
Yeah, it's easy. If you make $100 and you have to give 10 is not hard to give. But if you make 10,000 and have to give 1,000,
especially if you didn't build up the habit when you were making 100,
yes, you just start fresh and like, wait, I'm supposed to give $1,000 of my $10,000.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's crazy. Yeah, it's easy to be like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. And you said, so what's the first thing we do? And I think you're right. One of the first things we do is we go, what do I have to cut? Oh no. So this just happened in our life. We had a major thing happen. Long story that I won't tell, but just major thing came up that came with a huge expense that we weren't planning on. And what's the first thing that we typically do? Because I think we make contingency plans. Okay, what do I need to adjust? First, what do I need to cut? If you want to go down the road, you go, what if the first thing we did was like, okay, God, how are you going to provide?
How are you going to provide? What do you
like, instead of going, what I need to cut, oh no, guess we can't go to the grocery store. Let's say not even generosity.
Yeah.
What if we're like, okay, then we're just going to have to not eat. Or, okay, then God, you're going to have to provide.
Yeah.
And we recognize that he will.
And we have in our modern day, we have lots of like conveniences of entertainment. Oh, I'm pretty sure the average person, I don't know what the number is, so and all stats are made up anyway, but I'm sure the average person has well over $100 in monthly subscriptions to streaming apps.
Yes. There's actually a subscription that will find you your subscriptions and cancel it for you.
Yeah.
By the way, not all stats, 70% of stats are made up, including the one I just said. So, but you're right.
And so, often we go, well, what? There are things from a wisdom standpoint we can sacrifice. Do I need Netflix, Paramount, Peacock, Hulu, Disney, ESPN, HBO Max?
Right.
What are all the other ones? Do I need all of those?
Because I got rid of cable to save money. Because cable was killing me.
You know, it'd be great if someone would just lump all those streaming services into one platform and we just make one payment.
Yeah, it's called cable. But you're right.
We're old people making jokes right now. I just want you to know. Dawson's
people are like,
what's
cable?
But yeah, we don't ask what other sacrifice. Like there are decisions I can make.
But see, those aren't even sacrifices.
They're inconveniences.
There you go.
And do I want to be inconvenienced that way? No,
but you're
we
right.
usually-
The first thing we do is we go, oh, we're probably not going to be able to give to this thing anymore.
So you take that mentality and you just move it into all the other areas of our life.
Yeah.
If I only have so much time, because time is a greater currency than money.
Oh, for sure.
You
you can't get it back.
And the one thing we change, we give our time for money. We value our time and how much money we make. But time, okay, well, if life gets busy and things get stressful, what's the first thing we sacrifice? Yeah. So do we sacrifice serving because I just don't have time for that? Or do we sacrifice something else? Do we sacrifice entertainment, or time that we spend on entertainment? Do we sacrifice time that we spend on social media scrolling? Where do we sacrifice our time if we find that our time is being constrained because we have 3 kids or 2 kids and they're all playing sports and school's crazy? Like, how do we adjust? What's the first thing on the quote unquote proverbial chopping block?
And would you say, so on that, would you say that these things are all contingencies?
I would say
Plan Bs,
I would say what I'm talking about here these aren't contingencies. These are speak to the mindset that we have that will inform if we live with contingencies.
Gotcha.
So contingencies are, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I will do X, Y, and Z, but if this happens, I'm out.
Okay.
Or I'll follow Jesus, but I'm only going to follow him if I don't have to do A, B, and C. I'll do D, E, F. I like those things, but I will not do A, B, C. I don't like those things. So I'm only going to follow Jesus if I can ignore the first 3 things here. What it boils down to is Jesus is priest, he salvation, he is prophet, he is the one who's the voice of God in our life. He's priest, prophet, and he's king.
Right.
King determines our steps. He determines our actions. I think we love Jesus as priest, the forgiver of our sins. Yeah. We love Jesus as prophet, the one who has showed us the way to God. Like, that's encouraging. We don't always like Jesus as king because king determines our actions, our lifestyle.
It's authority.
It's the authority. Yes. And so I think contingency plan looks like I'll do some, but not all, or I'll always have a way out that I'll keep. I'll try out this for a while, but if somebody says something I don't like, I'm out of here. I think people build in contingency plans to their church habits.
For sure.
What I mean by that, and this might be dangerous to say on a podcast, I didn't plan to say this, but I think that it's easy for people, not everyone who transfers churches does this, to clarify. Plenty of people move from one church to another church because they feel like, hey, God's really leading me. They moved cities maybe. They live in a different area. They feel like a season came to a close and they are looking for something different. Tons of reasons.
Yes.
But there is a group, a portion of people that will change churches the moment they experience a challenge. Or the moment that something's presented in a way that might require some self-reflection, some change, a mentality shift. And I think it's easy for people to stay in a church long enough to the point to where you get known and then the challenge happens. And that's the easiest time for someone to go, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to start over again. And now I'm just the new guy with the happy face and just, and I think, again, not saying I would say most people who switch churches don't do this, but there is a portion, less than half, maybe less than 25%, 25%, that they shift because the challenge gets tough and God's trying to pull something out of them. And to be a pastor, we're not just called to encourage people, we're called to equip and challenge and shepherd. And, when you think of a the imagery of shepherd is with sheep and a shepherd, and the shepherd has a shepherd's crook to keep the sheep and to guide, and the shepherd gets dirty in the mess with the sheep, like all that stuff. The imagery's there. And so I think that it's important to know, like, even in like your church life and your walk of discipleship, if you find yourself at a place where you're getting challenged or there's something additionally that's being added that you're being inspired, challenged, whatever you want to call it, to make a shift, to make a change, to walk out following Jesus in a way that maybe is not something you were comfortable with in the first place, but it's something that biblically is true, clarify that, then maybe don't look for a way out in that. Instead of looking for an escape hatch when the pressure gets high, see that you can elevate to the place where God is calling you to. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Do we have time for like 2 more questions?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah.
So you made this statement. It's like, literally, here's the quote. Sometimes our contingency plans often look like wisdom, but are fear in disguise.
Yes.
I want you to unpack that a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. So the simple thought there is the contingency. Oh, I'm just being wise here, just in case, like just making sure all my ducks are in a row. Like it looks like wisdom. And we can present it even as wisdom, but why are we doing that?
Okay.
So if God's called us to do something, like let's use the story of God calling my family to move from North Carolina to California. If God's calling me to do it, what if I would have so cool story. We put an podcast, put an offer.
I was going to bring it up, but I'm like, okay.
We put an offer in on a house last week and it got accepted. So we'll be like homeowners in California and San Diego, here in Santee.
See, miracles do happen.
Miracles do happen. In a few short weeks, as long as everything goes well through the next 10 days, as we're just walking through all the quote unquote contingencies.
Yes.
We have to clear the contingencies. Yes. But we have to make sure there's nothing significantly wrong with the house and all that kind of stuff, all the due diligence process. But let's say I moved but internally I was like, hey, this doesn't work. Maybe we should keep that house in North Carolina. We'll hold on to it just in case. You know what I'll do? I'll keep a couple other things in place too, just in case. That way, if it doesn't work here, we can just go back.
Great example.
There. That would be, in my opinion, a cowardly way for me to approach the call of God in my life. If not only the church, the elders here fully believe that God singled out me for this role, and if I believe God had called me here, I don't need an escape route. And there are people who are like, oh, it's expensive out there. It's this, it's that. Yeah, all that's true. But I trust that God will take care of me. Yeah. I trust that God's my source. Right. I talked about that yesterday. Yes, you did. And that I didn't know the house. We didn't get the house accepted until Saturday night. Okay. So we're like 2 days into this. Yeah. But God's my source. And there's things that he did in the process of this. There's relationships that were there were connection points that were made that I don't know how it happened other than God, the orchestration of it all. And they accepted an offer that I was told was not the highest offer.
Wow.
And they accepted an offer that I do believe the home will be valued at more than the offer. But there were some things that fell in place that really worked out well. But if I would have had contingency plans when stuff gets hard or rent went up on the house or whatever, you just list the things. Contingency plans, it's almost like a prenup.
Okay. This doesn't work out then.
If this doesn't work out, well, we could amicably split and you take that, I take this, whatever. It's providing my way out before the thing starts. Yeah. That's a plan B and that's a contingency. And I think we do that in life. Now, there's wisdom. So if I was to move out here and I had zero money in the bank, well, I was being unwise.
Yes, right.
I need to be wise with what I have because I need to steward it well. But I don't need to position in a way to get me out of here if I need to be out of here. Yeah. And so now, I'm here in the process trying to buy a house. If I was like, I need to keep that money in the bank because if this doesn't work out, I need to be able to put something down somewhere else. Right. No, I need to put down roots right here where God has called me to be.
You're be obedient to be at.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah.
So then with that, I'm sure there's people that are going, oh, this might be a backup plan, or this is a backup plan. Oh, I've got this one going on over here. So how would you, someone's listening right now, and I think we probably close with this. Someone's listening right now and they're feeling convicted, challenged. about some backup plans, but they're not sure how to fully surrender that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say as like a closing thought? What would you say to that person?
Don't try to figure it out in isolation. First off, go to a trusted leader. Maybe you're in a life group here. Maybe you don't come to Rice City, but you go to a different church somewhere else and you have a pastor that you can go have a conversation with a trusted leader in your life and lay it out. Lay it out. Say, this is what I'm looking at. These are the things that I have in place. And then ask yourself the question, first off, can you hear what you feel like God's telling you to do? And then talk to your leader. Like submit to, I believe this is what God's saying. Does this feel right? Your leader might look at you and go, you think God's telling you to do that? You can't balance a checkbook. You think he wants you to run a business right now? Like, hold up. Like maybe that's your internal desire and God's telling you to do it. So the wisdom is take these steps to get there. But so submit it to a leader, figure out what God's saying to you. And then with wisdom and with humility, begin to remove contingencies. If it's simple stuff like you still have your ex's numbers in your phone, just pull your phone out right now, delete them.
You don't need to understand, like you don't need to talk to your leader. It's being said. Just get rid of them.
Delete them. Remove them from social media if you need to. It's your social media. Do whatever you want with it. But like do what you need to do to remove contingency if it's something like that. But I don't think the average person is dealing with those small ones. I think it's bigger, significant stuff. But I think there has to be something that goes, I am committed to the thing that God's called me to, and I'm going to trust him in the process of it. The wisdom in the multitude of counsel is when it carries great ramifications. The wisdom goes, maybe God has called you to pastor in California, but don't try to move there when you're 27 or when you're 33 and you have no experience, no understanding of what you're about to step into. Let the process play out as it should and let God guide your steps. So there's ways like that. I felt like God called me to pastor a church in 2015. I didn't start pastoring, like senior pastoring until 2024, campus pastoring in 2019, but it was a process of time.
Right.
And so, but you can remove contingencies. One of the things, like for instance, I'll give you another for instance, very practical. This role here, I was hired through Slingshot. So I was still in their portal. So 2 months after getting here, I got a random text or email from some random person in Slingshot. They have a role they feel like I would be a great fit for. And I'm like, I laughed. Right. I'm like, y'all already placed me. You can remove me from the thing. And I probably was removed. It was probably just in some random thing they saw it and was like, oh, this will work. But I don't have a bookmark of church hiring positions that I go look at. I don't know who's hiring right now. Right. And when I started applying for this role, I wasn't applying at other roles. This was the only role I was applying at that time. Even Pete, who just left, when he decided to apply for his Woodland role, he stopped applying and looking at other churches. He felt like God had called him there. He knew where he was supposed to go. And I think internally, I think there's a lot of people like that. You know what God's calling you to. You're just a little fearful of what that commitment could look like. Yeah. Our church planting residents, Andy and Courtney, they come on in a couple months. He messaged me afterwards. He's like, hey man, that plan B, be fully committed to what God. He's like, that resonated with me. And because that's what he's doing.
But you know what, as a business owner, I think we sometimes go, oh, that makes sense for the pastor. I will tell you, for even me, there have been many moments in this journey of entrepreneurialism that I'm in that I've had to go, nope, this is what God's got me doing. Yeah. We said burn the ships. I got to burn that ship. I can't do that. Because even though that's appealing and, ooh, this is kind of hard right now. Because as a business owner, it's all over the place at times. As an employee, you get a new boss and you go, maybe I need to go. Did God call you to the place you're called to be at right now? Yeah. And so I think a lot of times we look at that and go, oh, that all makes sense in the church world, but I work at a company and it's hard here. And I think what if I'm not saying you'll never leave. I'm just saying don't leave until God says to.
The Bible is a book, not as a guide for pastors to be in ministry. Yeah. The Bible is a book it is a book for the Christian that will point people to Christ and the way we are to live our life. Yeah. And so the Bible isn't a handbook for ministers. The Bible is a handbook for the Christian. Handbook's not the right word. But the Bible is a collection of books designed to help the Christian see Christ more clearly and walk out the life he's called him to in whatever sphere you live in. Yes. business owner, employee, barista at a coffee shop.
Which, to close this out, brings me right back to being, because at the end of the day, you're not a pastor follower of Jesus. You're a follower of Jesus.
Yes.
And I'm not a business owner follower of Jesus, also executive pastor follower of Jesus. I am just a follower of Jesus.
That has the opportunity
to do these other things. And that's what we have to remember always.
Yeah.
So that was a good talk today, man.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff in there, honestly. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Leading through those questions.
Yeah, that's good.
Well. And we're looking forward this Sunday. For those of you who don't know, this will be Pastor Jeremy's first Sunday preaching,
also known as the Great Reverend. We're gonna get that started.
We'll add a few more adjectives to that, but he's preaching this Sunday.
Yeah.
Super looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be great. And then so we're gonna actually this Sunday. We're not on our Patriarch series. I've told Jeremy, preach whatever you want to, whatever's on your heart. And so
we're preaching on Isaac and Jacob. I'm just kidding.
Perfect.
I'm not.
Brilliant. So we're looking forward to that. So be here this weekend if you're here in San Diego. And I know it's July 4th this week, but if you're staying local, be in church and come to 9 if you want to go to the beach on Sunday. Then go to the beach.
I think
afterwards.
we got like some kind of surprise, anyways, if they come, right? Aren't we doing something? I feel like there's something.
Yeah.
Yes,
We'll have some fun.
There's something coming.
We're always going to have fun.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We got something coming.
Yeah.
So, all right. We'll see you guys this weekend.